Hi everyone. I just want to take you with me out to the garden today and share with you 5 things I'm doing in my garden today before winter hits. Now, I'll be honest with you, here in Southern California, I don't deal with snow or frozen ground. However, every time I've skipped these things, I've always regretted it. So today I'm going to show you these 5 things, what they are, and how you might do them differently in a northern climate where winter hits harder. So come on down to the garden with me and we'll get going. The first task is cleaning out garden beds, like these sunflowers here that are brown and dying. Now, I know this isn't the funnest task in the world, and honestly, a lot of times I'm really tempted to skip this task because I figure, why not just let nature take its course? I mean, the plants will dry up and die and just disappear, right? Wrong. Actually, when you leave dead, dried up plants in your garden beds, they could be infected with diseases and have lots of aphids and other kinds of things that you don't want in your garden beds over the winter. So yesterday, I just cleaned out this garden bed right behind me here. I had tons of dead cucumbers, aphids covering the leaves. And if I skip this task, then the aphids and eggs and larvae could overwinter in the soil. Here in California, I could miss out on fall and winter harvests. And if you live in a northern climate and aren't planting in your garden beds over winter, the eggs could overwinter in your soil. And then when you go to plant your spring seedlings, they could actually infest your crops before you even get them off the ground. Yesterday, what I did is I went through and took out all these dead and dying cucumbers. Now again, I know it's not the funnest thing in the world, but you know what? It actually feels pretty good to know that this whole garden bed is cleaned out. And because I am in Southern California, we still have some warm weather left. So I was able to save some of the cucumbers and leave them in. But northern climate gardeners, you might be dealing with frost or freezing temperatures coming on soon. You probably want to take out anything that's dying, but it doesn't stop there. If you find our videos helpful, please subscribe, leave us a comment, and give us a thumbs up. Thanks. Super important that you spray the soil before you close up your garden beds for the winter. And the reason for this is some of these cucumbers were infested with aphids, which fell into my soil. So what I use for that is the Takedown by Monterey, because it kills all those aphids on contact. Not only that, it kills the larvae and the eggs. So spraying the soil is super important. The sprayer here makes it really easy. I can just pour the Takedown right in the top, mixes with the water in the bottom of the sprayer, put the plunger back on, and we are ready to spray. So I'm just gonna spray down the soil here in my raised bed to kill any of those eggs that might be lurking around. And my favorite part of the sprayer is I can swivel the nozzle here so I can also get the underside of the leaves to kill any aphids that are hiding on the leaves. I also always like to give a little spray around the mulch or wood chips, whatever you have around your garden beds as well, because a lot of times there are bugs kind of hiding in the mulch. Bugs really like to hide in mulch. And this way, it'll kind of give yourself a little barrier of protection around your garden bed. And I hope you find that tip helpful. And the benefit of doing this now in the fall for southern gardeners is you can plant more fall and winter crops, which means more harvest. In the north, it means a much cleaner start in the spring without pests. Now, the next thing I like to do as soon as I pull my crops out is amend my soil. Now, sometimes I'm really tempted to skip this one as well, because you know what? After you do all that work, pulling out your crops, who wants to do more work by amending your soil? But what I found, if I incorporate this into my routine, I'm so happy next time I plant my crops because my soil is already refreshed with good organic nutrients. And it just makes it so much easier when that step is taken care of already. And that way I have plenty of good, fresh nutrients in my garden beds when it comes planting time. So here I'm using the Bumper Crop Organic Soil Builder. It's got lots of good fertilizers that will help my plants get off to a great start. This is usually the last thing in the world I want to do after doing all the work to pull out my crops. I'm always glad I did. Not only does it save me a ton of work and just make planting new crops so much easier. And by the way, this is the Bumper Crop Soil Builder. I absolutely love this stuff. It smells so fresh and amazing. It has little tiny bits of fir bark, which breaks down a lot quicker in your soil than those terrible wood chips in the soils that you buy at the garden center. My garden bed has settled. This will kind of top it off and give it good, organic, fresh nutrients that will help my plants when I plant them in the spring or when I plant over the winter here in Southern California, just get off to a great start. Now, I know what you northern gardeners might be thinking who are dealing with snow and cold over the winter time. Why should I do this now before winter hits? Well, there's a very good reason why. When you amend your garden beds now before winter hits, it gives the organic matter in the soil time to break down over the winter months and gives those microbes more time to get active in your soil. So by the time you come to spring and you plant your spring crops, your soil is going to be fertile and absolutely beautifully dark and rich and all ready for spring planting. It doesn't stop though with just amending your garden beds. You don't want to leave this beautiful soil bare over the winter time. I never want to have bare soil. So what I always do is spread a nice layer of mulch over my soil. So this is shredded leaves. Just use whatever free resources you can find. Fall is a great time just to collect my leaves around the garden, save them for the winter time, and then just spread them over my garden beds. Whether or not I'm planting over the winter in these garden beds or not, it doesn't matter. Now, one thing that's super important about mulching is it's going to protect the soil from washing away in rain and snow, because soil is your biggest investment and you definitely don't want it eroding over the winter time. Not only that, what I love about leaves is that once it kind of settles in here over the winter, it brings in the worms like crazy, and there's nothing better than pulling back your leaves in the springtime and seeing tons of worms just wriggling their way around in the soil. I mean, worms have so many benefits for your soil, and I love to do anything I can to bring them into my garden beds. Now, you can find Bumper Crop Soil Builder and other Bumper Crop soils at your independent local garden center. Just check out bumpercrop.com. There's a store locator there. If there's not one near you and you don't have access to it, you can also use compost to top off your garden beds and amend them. And if you don't have access to leaves, ask your neighbors if they have leaves, go to your local park, collect some leaves, or I also like to use shredded straw. I'll put links to everything down in the video description. Next thing I'm doing today is winterizing my irrigation system. Now, this is usually the last thing in the world I feel like doing, especially when it's still warm outside. Don't skip this step. If you do, you'll definitely regret it in the spring. Now, here's what I'm doing in a southern climate. I'm gonna be simply cleaning out my filters, because even though I'm on city water, sometimes debris and things do get stuck in the filter, and then you have a clogged line and not as effective or efficient watering. So this is the filter that hooks right onto my timer. Just gonna go ahead and unscrew it. And I do use the Mr. Landscaper system. And I know a lot of you started using that this spring. So if you've got this system, you've got this little filter hooked onto your timer, and it's a nice tight fit, so it is a little bit tough to get out. And I don't have a ton to rinse out. You can see it's a really fine mesh screen there, so it really does a good job at catching the debris. There's not a lot of debris, but it's always a good idea just to give it a little rinse here. And that way I know there's nothing clogged, nothing that's going to slow down my watering. Everything will flow right through as it should. So quick little rinse, pop it back on. It's just one of those maintenance tasks that it's a good idea to do at least once a year. Get it nice and tight so there's no leaks. And we are good to go with winterizing here in Southern California. If you live in a northern climate, things are much different with winterizing, but it's still super easy. If you live somewhere where you get hard freezes or heavy frosts, what you want to do, again, no need to drain your whole entire system or blow it out like a lot of people do, is with the Mr. Landscaper system, you do want to bring in your timers, because the timer has electronic components that can freeze. So you want to do that before your first frost. So you simply disconnect it and bring it inside into a nice protected location. The other thing that you want to do, no need to blow your whole entire system out. You don't need to take the time to do that. But what you do want to do is uncrimp your 1/2-inch lines here. Just remove your crimper or your end cap if you have one, and let the water drain out of your lines. I like to kind of loosen this part up here. You can see there's some water kind of draining out. And then what you can do is put one of these winterizing plugs. These are available over at mrlandscaper.com. And what this does, slip it on the end of the line there. What that does, it prevents debris from getting in your line over the winter time, prevents any insects from crawling into your line. So that way when you get to spring, it's going to be really quick just to remove your winterizing plug. Even just leave this little end crimper on your line over the winter time, crimp it up again, and you'll be ready to attach your timer and fire up your drip irrigation as soon as you get your plants in. So it just kind of makes getting your spring plants in that much easier and quicker. The next thing I'm doing today is adjusting my drip irrigation schedule. And this may apply more to you southern gardeners than you northern gardeners. If you northern gardeners have already brought your timers in and your garden is shut down for the winter time, you're not going to need to do this. But you southern gardeners are probably still watering in the winter time. However, the garden is getting less hours of sunlight, which means the soil doesn't dry out as quickly, the temperatures are cooling off, and it needs much less water than in the heat of the summer. So super important, so I can conserve water, that I adjust my watering schedule to much less watering now in the fall. So super easy to do with these timers. So right now I'm just gonna scroll through here on the settings. I'm gonna lower my watering from 30 minutes down to 20 minutes. I'm also not gonna water them every day. I'm gonna water them every 2 days. Set on auto. There we go, quick and simple. My watering is adjusted. It only took me a few minutes, helped me conserve water, and then I'll go around and do this to each different timer in my garden. The next thing that I'm doing now in the fall, when things are a little bit slower, before the cold weather hits, is keep track of my mistakes or things I learned this year in the garden. Now you might be wondering, why in the world are you doing that? Don't you want to forget your mistakes? I actually want to keep track of them because it saves me from making the same mistakes last year. Then I can write down what I learned this year, what grew and what didn't, and that way I can correct those mistakes for next year. There's a couple of ways I like to do that. First off, I keep track of them on the Notes app on my phone because I always have this with me. The other thing that I like to do is to use the CALIKIM Garden Planner, which I know a lot of you use as well. It has a great journaling section in there, which you can record whatever you're doing in the garden that day and make note of what worked and what didn't, when you sprayed, for which bugs, so you know exactly what to do again next year. And it'll even send you a reminder. Now, I want to share one of my garden mistakes that I made this year that I've actually made a couple of years in a row, but I'm not going to make the same mistake again next year. I've planted tomatoes here for a couple of years in a row, and for some reason, they just haven't done well. I think it's possibly because the magnolia tree has been shading them out, but for some reason, this garden bed here just doesn't work for tomatoes, and I'm not planting them again next year. I'll plant something else that thrives in partial shade, so I get more food out of this space. Lesson learned. I hope you found this video helpful. Once I started doing these things, I really saw the benefit, the time savings, the energy and effort savings, and a lot easier to get my spring garden started. Let me know which one you're going to do before winter hits in your garden. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time in the garden.